do you think there will be any long-term side effects to the vaccine? If so, what do you think these side effects are? And you already mentioned the original antigenic sin. Say that again. Pronounce that, please.
Original antigenic sin.
Okay, original antigenic sin. So that would be one potential side effect of the vaccine. Are there any other ones that you've read in your ongoing research?
So let me start by saying what we were saying in our lawsuits related to the vaccines going back to last summer.
Okay.
And that is, by definition, it is impossible to know what the long-term effects are.
Right, because it hasn't been a long term.
You can't study something that hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just put that on burner number one. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
And that everything we say after this is speculative because by definition, we can't know what the long-term effects of a brand new drug are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But we're starting to get some history, right? So we've passed the 1-year anniversary of the deployment of the COVID vaccines. Now, the main thrust of the vaccinations, when they really started to pick up steam, didn't happen until June or July of last year. So we haven't really reached the 1-year anniversary yet of the, sort of the largest cohort of vaccinees. Mm-hmm. You'll probably remember all the criticism of the slow rollout of the vaccines and the trouble getting them to people and having to set up, deals with Publix and CVS and other locations to the public-private partnerships to get the vaccines out and all of that. So those, first few months of 21, it was a lower volume anyway. So we really don't have that much experience yet with a large number of vaccines into a 1-year horizon, but we are starting to see more moving through December, January, February of 21, now into December 21, January, February 22, and so forth. We're starting to see that. And what I observe as a lawyer, as a person who's looking for facts that I could present to a judge or jury, I notice that all of the news about adverse effects and longer term effects is bad, is negative for the vaccines. And there's very little good news about that. So what I mean by that is that if I'm looking for a trend, right? And so there are a couple of possibilities. One possibility is that as we get news about the efficacy of the vaccines and the longer term implications and the health issues people are dealing with, that we see good news, right? We could see that people are doing great, that have been on the vaccines, that their health has improved, that the death rates in vaccinated cohorts are declining relative to unvaccinated and so forth. But we're not seeing that. The second possibility is the news is mixed, right? So there's some areas where we're seeing some really good news related to the vaccines over the space of that first year, and then some bad news. Mm-hmm. And it would be hard to net it out. We're not seeing that either. What we're seeing is that almost all of the news relentlessly is negative for side effects related to the vaccines. And there's a concept of subclinicality that you don't hear talked about much, but I think is very important related to this issue. And what subclinicality is about is, right now we know that there are side effects, adverse effects related to the vaccines that are related to cardiac issues, right? So myocarditis, pericarditis, that kind of thing. And so we're learning about that because people are going into the hospital with these conditions, or, having blood clots and strokes and cardiac events and things like that. But what we don't know about are how many people who are having cardiac related injuries that are below a level requiring hospitalization or direct treatment, right?
Right.
So they may have some AFib, but it's not bad enough that they're feeling like they have to go into the hospital or talk to their doctor or something. Mm-hmm. We have no way to measure that. one of the unfortunate byproducts of the, the tools that the government used to create artificial levels of fear and anxiety about the vaccines in order to encourage people to take them, that we now know about, that they, were using these techniques to essentially propaganda techniques to encourage higher levels of vaccination. It's made people reluctant to talk about adverse effects. And so it's made it very difficult to measure the true level of adverse effects, in particular in that subclinical cohort where they don't need medical attention because they're unwilling to self-report to some degree, right? We can't measure to what degree, and we can't measure how many of them are having those subclinical effects, but it is reasonable to think that they are out there in greater numbers than the numbers that we know about who are going into the hospital for treatment.
Right.
Okay. And so then the question, I think, where you were going is, what will the harvest be from, all of those folks who are experiencing right now these subclinical levels? Is it going to shorten their lives? Right. Are they more likely to have cardiac events when they have extreme stress or high levels of exercise or things like that? So it's impossible to say, but it's not looking good right now. And I don't mean that to frighten anybody who's had the vaccine. The numbers of people who are experiencing adverse events is still very small as a proportion to the total number of people who have been vaccinated. It's much higher than any drug that should have ever been approved by the FDA.
Yeah.
Right. So what Dr. McCullough does a really good job of explaining this. And, before the COVID vaccines, if in a clinical trial they had hit 50 deaths, they would have pulled the drug and they would have stopped the clinical trial. Now, what we've seen in recent document dumps from Pfizer ordered by the court, that in the Pfizer clinical trials, they hit 1,223 deaths.
Wow. 1,223?
Correct.
Wow.
And the FDA approved it anyway. So again, it's far, far above any level historically that would have required a drug to be pulled.
Wait. Real quick, before you go, do me a favor. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell so you'll be notified with all our new content as it comes out on a daily basis. And if you're willing to support this ministry, you can do so by going to rightresponseministries.com/donate. Thanks so much. God bless.